Hi, welcome back to Furious Fiction. I'm Mark Mustian here with Diane Roberts. We're live today. We've got a great program, Jennine Capo Crucet. And the accolades are flowing, the awards, I can't keep track of them all. It's 2009 Iowa Short Fiction, 2010 John Gardner Book Award. Welcome to Furious Fiction.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you. Tell us about how living in Hialeah, in Miami, made you a writer.
Oh gosh, it's just a city full of stories, and you can't go to Publix without the person checking you out telling you their life story. And so it's kind of a city that inspires you to retell those stories. So yeah, and that between that and growing up in a Cuban family that was constantly telling us stories about the motherland or the homeland, and it was a place that completely existed in my imagination and not in real life.
And can I stop you there? I mean, do you see yourself as a Cuban writer? And what is a Cuban writer?
I mean, obviously that's part of my heritage, but I think of myself more as a Miami writer, and very much writing from a particular kind of working class immigrant experience that isn't necessarily my experience, but was that of my parents. And so just kind of honoring that voice and honoring that that tradition of fiction.
You're a very funny writer. How do you use humor in your stuff? Not all your stuff is funny, but a lot of it's very funny. How do you see yourself doing that?
I like to use humor to sort of have a reader kind of disarm them when I'm about to do something really mean or sad to them. So I use it to kind of break down the wall, and then I go in and get them.
Yeah, that's good. Raise their expectations. Slap them.
And I have a history in sketch comedy too. That was kind of where I started writing. And so I think very much in terms of scene and timing. And then in my sketches, I used to write things like, "Oh, it should smell like this on stage." And it's like, no, my kind of comedy troupe was like, you can't make it smell like something. And that's when I realized I was moving towards fiction.
But it's so hard to do that and do it well. If you've tried to write humorous stuff, I mean, a lot of times, what's humorous to you, you suddenly get out there and realize, it's not that humorous. So, I mean, do you ever find that, or do you test it on people, or how do you do that?
To listen to me, kind of, if you were to stand outside my writing office door, it would be really weird. I read a lot of stuff out loud to myself and get a sense of the timing of things. But I think part of it can be taught. There are certain little things about like the rule of three and kind of timing things so that you have the third thing is the funniest thing and you heighten. But otherwise, it just kind of, you asked earlier about coming from Miami. It's a hilarious city in that sense. People have a great sense of timing in the way they tell stories. So it's part of it's just absorbing that and then replicating it on the page on the sentence level.
Well, it's one of those parts of America that is America broadly defined. Central America, South America, the Caribbean, Northern America. It's just the whole thing there. So that's great.
Tell us real quickly before we have to leave here about How to Leave Hialeah. That's the novel that came out last year. Tell us, how did you come to write that? What was the, what brought you to that book?
Well, the story collection is. I had read Edward B. Jones's Lost in the City, which is this story collection that really gives a different version than the popular idea of Washington, D.C. And that came on the heels of me reading James Joyce's Dubliners, so this was years ago. And I felt that I had within me the stories needed to tell, kind of give the voice of Miami from a bunch of different angles. So not the idea of saying, well, once you've read this book, you know Miami, but to say, well, once you've read this book, you have a sense of a place, and you have a sense of a culture that isn't necessarily Latino culture, but is a very much American culture. And so it kind of came out of, I was writing all these stories and realized they were all within the same 10 blocks of my imagination. And it just kind of came to throwing some in and pulling some out before sending it off for the prize. But yeah, it kind of came together that way. I kind of imagine all the characters as neighbors.
Yeah, and I like the idea of 10 blocks of your imagination.
Yeah, like 10 or 12 blocks.
And tell us, what's the territory of your imagination working on right now?
Oh, I'm working now on a novel tentatively titled Send a Dozen to Get One Through. And it actually takes up some of the themes in the title story of the collection, How to Leave Hialeah, and follows a first-generation college student. So very much more tackling the ideas of class differences necessarily. And it's kind of happening in the background is the Elian Gonzalez thing that happened in the late 90s, early aughts. and kind of someone trying to escape the political while constantly being pulled back into that.
Great.
So it's really exciting to work on.
Well, we're really excited to read it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being with us today. Again, it's Jennine Capo Crucet. She's the author of How to Leave Hialeah, the winner of multiple prizes, multiple awards.
Iowa Short Fiction Award.
So congratulations
The gold
to you.
standard.
And thanks for being with us on Furious Fiction. We'll see you next
Thanks.
time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.